Hey, Janice.
Hey, Anthony.
Today, let's talk about a new law here in New York and whether or not, will this new law actually protect grieving families from estate creditors? We're both kind of familiar with this issue, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So there's a new law in New York, state of New York, that's meant to protect grieving families from debt collectors. And just to jump to the conclusion, I'd basically say that this is a case of better late than never. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So first, why don't we talk about let's call it the problem? Yeah.
Yes. What is it they're doing?
Hold on one second. I have something on screen that. All right, I'll move that out of the way. Very good. Okay, what's the problem? So for decades, for the longest time, the status quo has been that debt collectors would sort of prey on surviving families. I guess that's the best way of putting it. And so shortly after death, if somebody passed away with some debts, the creditors would take this opportunity to really pounce on the surviving families and sort of berate them into paying the debts. Now, you might be wondering, hey, what's the problem? I mean, if they owed money, they owed money. Well, the issue is that there are many situations where the surviving family does not have an obligation to repay a deceased person's debts, right? There's a lot of situations, actually. So, this is basically very tricky behavior, very manipulative behavior to, guilt or persuade or, somehow, trick these grieving family members into paying these debts. Yeah.
I really think they're taking advantage of the fact that most people don't know that they may or may not be responsible for that debt.
Yeah. So let me give you an example of exactly how tricky they could be. In some instances, creditors would even offer comfort to family members in an effort to lure them into paying the outstanding debt, like being the shoulder to cry on. I mean, that's just creepy. Come on.
It is. It's so misleading and it's so manipulative.
And again, I got to reinforce this. In many of these cases, the family members did not have a legal obligation to repay, but they were tricked, manipulated, whatever, into repaying anyway, which is good for the debt collectors, right? They got repayment on a debt that otherwise would have gone, to collections or whatever, right?
Right. Well, think about it. In a time like that, you have so many emotions going on, and you're probably stressed, especially if you're the one taking care of things, and you're receiving all these calls that are most likely one after the other after the other. So to make it go away, you'll pay, and it is just sad. I mean, they are taking advantage of a situation where either they don't know or they have so many emotions that are going on.
Right on. I mean, so this is just one of many reasons why I just do believe having a professional executor in place just makes a lot of sense. I still kind of don't get it why this hasn't been an outsourced thing already. I mean, think about it. Nobody does their own tax, or very few people do their own taxes anymore. Very few people sell their own houses anymore. But in a situation that's pretty complicated and has a lot of legal and tax implications, meaning settling a deceased person's estate, it's still very much a DIY type of scenario where people think, oh well, I'm the eldest son, I should be the executor in settling this. When you really don't know what you're doing, just to be blunt.
Absolutely. And, I honestly think people just don't know there are professional executors out there. I know because we're in this field, but I don't think the layperson knows that this is so common and that there are people out there that can handle this, that are third party and not invested into the family. Right. I really just don't think that they know.
All right. So the new law is a good attempt to address this pretty gross problem, right? And it basically says that the creditors, the debt collectors, they must affirmatively inform that the family is not legally obligated to repay the debt. So, what do you think, Janice? Is that going to have the necessary and intended effect?
Absolutely. It compared to them being very nice and saying you have to pay us money, opposed to them saying, well, you're not legally obligated to pay, but we're trying to get money. I think my call would end there.
So I'm going to disagree with you, only because I have the hardened heart of a cynic. And I'm also a lawyer, right? Which is that the same thing, right?
I will plead the fifth on this one.
So if the debt collectors, if their duty, the law says you must inform them that you're not legally obligated to pay. Are you familiar with the term fine print that nobody reads?
Yep. How many things? Well, okay, you're a lawyer, so you might actually
Yeah.
read them, but how many fine prints do you click on in a day where it says, read all of our rules and regulations before you can enter this?
Yeah, I mean, if
It doesn't.
burying it in the fine print satisfies my legal requirement that I've informed you that you're not obligated to repay, has anything really changed? I mean, have you ever read the terms of service of Facebook? I mean, that's what Zuckerberg said, right? Like, hey, it's
Not
in the
so
terms of
much.
service, right? Nobody reads that stuff.
No, no. So, how much are they obligated to say it just in the fine print, or do they have to say it on the phone?
Great question.
Yeah, that would be the difference between, yeah, if you're getting a tiny little piece of paper at the end with, at the end of like a car commercial, you see a car commercial, there's 6 paragraphs of this teeny tiny print. You can't even see it.
Or the fine print at the bottom of the pharmaceutical commercials, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
May cause death, dismemberment, and whatever.
Right. You may lose a
Possible side
finger,
effect.
but yes, your hair will regrow. It's same concept. So I wonder how much and how prominent they have to make that statement.
And there doesn't, I mean, I haven't read the actual statute. I'm just reading the press release, but it doesn't mention anything about prohibiting the actual calling. So the harassment itself can continue, it sounds like. So let's say even if the law says that the creditor must affirmatively say on the phone, you are not required to pay, right? Or some very, double talky way of saying it just to satisfy the letter of the law, the creditor can still call, which is the phone calls itself are the stressful part of the situation. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, when they're calling you nonstop, that's stressful.
I mean, just because I know it's spam, one of those robocallers, doesn't mean it's not annoying when I pick up, right?
Correct. Or even if it rings and you don't answer and you have 20 a day, which happens every day anyway,
Yeah,
then
mean,
you're
when is that going to stop?
put 20 on top of that. Yeah, that is very frustrating.
Okay, so this is a quick one. I mean, we're just kind of giving you the FYI about this law in case you're in a situation where you unfortunately had a loved one passed away and you're getting some calls. You do not, or let's put it, speak to someone. Do not rely on the person on the phone to inform you whether or not you actually have a repayment obligation. And now at least you're armed with the law that they cannot call you and they need to tell you whether or not that you may not be legally obligated to pay. If they don't, you're dealing with a real sleazy character, right?
right. Exactly. And I always go back to, the law enforcement days of make sure it's real too. I mean, people prey on this type of situation when they know you just lost a loved one. Have them send you the documents. Don't start handing out money over the phone until you know that it's real and that you're actually obligated to pay it.
Yeah, just be aware that you may be in a vulnerable state or a state of unknown, and just watch yourself. Be a little more vigilant.
I totally agree.
Cool. So I do want to applaud Governor Cuomo. It's a good attempt, but with most legislation, you got to see if it'll actually work, right? The real world has a way of working its way around corners and around law, finding loopholes, right?
Yes. Especially when they're already being a little shady to begin with, they might find that loophole. So this will be interesting to look at maybe a year from now and say, how has it changed and what are they doing?
All right, cool. So hope this helped anyone in this situation. Thanks again, Governor Cuomo, for at least trying. And we'll check in with you again next time. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Bye now.